It was through this expansion that Islam entered Eastern Europe, and Bosnia became completely Muslim nation during this time. Islam had already spread steadily throughout Africa over the past centuries, and by late 1400s it had covered almost all of the continent. The lands deep into Asia had also been introduced to Islam, and the Philippines had already become a collection of Muslim islands. Though Islam had existed in the Sulu Islands and in Mindanao since the 9th century, it wasn't until the 1300s that Islam made its way to the area now known as Manila. The Ottoman Empire was the last great Muslim empire. It lasted from the late 1300s until the early 1900s. Though the expansion of science and learning, as in the past, the Ottoman Empire unified the people through common goals and a universal social reform. The Ottomans' ancestors, 11th century Turks from Central Asia, brought with them the belief that leadership was a divine right bestowed upon a chosen family. This went against the established Islamic practice of elected leadership, the model for which was the selection of Abu Bakr as Islam's first caliph, or successor to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Osman and his descendants ruled in an unbroken chain down to the abolition of the Sultanate by Mustafa Kemal in 1922. Many have argued that this deviation from the commonly held method of electing a leader of the faithful is the reason for the ultimate collapse of Islamic strength in the world. Regardless, the Ottoman Empire was powerful throughout its reaches. The non-Muslims in the Ottoman Empire lived as non-Muslims had lived under Islamic rule in the past, with protection and complete freedom of worship and the right to build as they chose any church or temple, as the Turks held firm within the law that there is no coercion in matters of religion. Within the empire, different provinces and states were established. Within these were governances for Muslims and non-Muslims, and all the people lived with a degree of equality under Ottoman rule. In 1829, Serbia gained independence from the Ottomans, followed quickly by Greece and then Egypt. This was the crumbling point of the empire. Some historians state that it was material greed which led to the corruption of governments that made the states begin to seek sovereignty, while Islamic scholars have argued that the deviation from the true faith of Islam caused Allah to remove their rule. Whatever the actual cause, the Ottoman states slowly began to separate, with Russia attacking from the north and Britain attacking with Greece from the west. It wasn't long before the armed forces of the Ottoman Empire began to fail. Mahmud II's successor, Abd al-Majid, reigned from 1839 to 1861. He was advised by his foreign minister, Rashid Pasha, and embarked upon a program of reform that would become known as Tanzimat, which is Turkish for reorganization. It was ushered in by an imperial decree issued in 1839. As the empire sought to westernize itself, it gained the support of the British, who retained a special relationship with the Ottomans until 1892. The Crimean War found Britain and the Ottomans allied against Russia. One of the prices for British support was the 1856 Ottoman proclamation of the Second Reform Edict that continued and strengthened the Tanzimat process. This would prove to be the final undoing of the vast empire. Nationalist movements had already formed within the Ottoman states, and nationalist agendas from people within Great Britain were behind some of the redistricting of former Turkish states. One of the greatest blows to the Turks came in the form of a religious leaders movement in the late 1700s. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, who lived from 1703 to 1792, led a religious movement, which is now referred to as Wahhabism, in Central Arabia. He sought to purify Islam. Wahhab wanted to return Islam to what he thought were its original principles as taught by the As-Salaf As-Salad. I'm sorry. My Arabic is not that good. Let me try that again. As-Salaf As-Salahin, which are the earliest converts to Islam. And he rejected what he regarded as corruptions and introductions of religious innovation and what he felt was shirk or polytheism. He allied himself with the House of Saud, which eventually triumphed over the Rashidids to control Central Arabia, then led several revolts against the Ottoman Empire. The initial success of the conquest of Mecca and Medina was followed by a humiliating defeat. Then there was a resurgence which culminated in the creation of Saudi Arabia. It was due to this major break and separation of the religious center of Islam from the political center that so much of the confusion began, and why so many states got the strength and courage to break free of Ottoman rule.